I will be uploading the slides into the chat box at the end of this session. I'll also send them to Paul and Christine as well, so you'll have access to them. Okay, just before I start going into some detail about what you can do with your degree, if you want to make an appointment to meet myself or one of my colleagues, you can do that through My Career Path. So we offer advice and guidance on everything from what can I do with my degree? Can you help me with my CV? Can you help me with my personal statement? A lot of psychology students have to prepare personal statements if they're thinking about going on to do postgraduate study. So we can give you feedback on that. We can help you prepare for interviews as well. We'll also have a look at your LinkedIn profile. We have events on every Wednesday in the library. I'll be telling you about one in a minute that may be of interest to you. It's called the Employer in Residence. And we have, you may have been at the Careers Fair at the end of September. We'll be having 5 more careers fairs at the end of January. All that information is available on My Career Path. Okay, this might be a particular interest to you. So every Wednesday in the library, just as you go in, before you get to the Plaza Cafe, in the foyer there, we have employers in residence. So for the last few weeks, we've had engineering, ICT, I think some, tomorrow it may be pharma, but on Wednesday, the 13th of November, it's like a mini careers fair. So we're going to have some not-for-profit organisations who'll be talking about the opportunities that they have. Most of these will be paid, some of them will be voluntary. So again, Paul was saying there might be some second years here. If you need to start getting some voluntary experience, some of these organisations offer voluntary experience as well. So as much experience as possible, really, it's good to have it. So we'll have the Youth Advocates Programme, we'll have the Peter McVerry Trust, St John of God's Community Services, Novas, who are based in Limerick, DePaul, and Enable Ireland. We still have to confirm that, but I think they will be coming, and a psychology graduate is working as a team leader with Enable Ireland, so hopefully she'll be coming along to that. So if you're free between 10 and 3 p.m, Wednesday the 13th of November, it's just a really good way to find out what it's like to work in these areas, okay, and maybe find out about their graduate programs, part-time jobs, volunteering opportunities. Okay, so what I'm going to be covering, hopefully I'll be finished by 12. I'm a very fast speaker, so I think I might be. We do a survey every year called the Graduate Outcome Survey to find out where our UL graduates have gone. So I'll be giving you a very brief overview of where some psychology and sociology graduates have gone. A big thing at the moment with employers, it's not just about the title of your degree, but it's about the skills that you have. So we'll be looking at some of the skills you've developed from psychology. We'll be having a look at careers as a professional psychologist. We'll also be looking at working as an assistant psychologist, or as it's now becoming known as a psychology assistant. I'm not sure how many of you have LinkedIn profiles, but LinkedIn can be very useful in finding out where previous psychology graduates have gone, where they're working, and you can have a look at their career paths as well. It's a really useful tool for doing some research. We'll have a look at related jobs to psychology, some graduate programs. Obviously, you may decide at the end of your degree that you don't want to go down the professional psychology route. There are lots of options out there for you. So as I said, it's more about thinking about the skills that you have. So I'll just give you a brief overview of a couple of them and a brief overview of further study. Okay, so these are just some of the areas that the Bachelor of Science in Psychology graduates have gone on to. So we look at the jobs people have gone on to, some people go on to do further study. So this just gives you a quick snapshot of where psychology graduates have gone 9 months after leaving their degree programme in UL. And you can see it's everything from travelling, recruitment, HR, rehabilitation, assistance with the Simon community, graduate programmes with Focus Ireland, the Brothers of Charity. Hopefully they'll be coming to the Employer in Residence as well. Lidl, one of our graduates from a good few years ago now, Kira, she went into Lidl to their graduate management training programme. and that was fantastic. I think she's kind of a global manager now for Pennies. So as you can see, lots of opportunities directly into the workplace. Where have they gone if they've gone on to do further study? So the Masters in Work and Organisational Psychology in UL is really popular with psychology graduates. So quite a few have gone on to do that. The MSc Psychological Science. Some people have decided to do a conversion course in speech and language therapy, occupational therapy. Other people have gone straight into doing PhDs, health psychology, clinical neuropsychology. So you can see a lot of postgraduate options out there too. So then we move on to the BA Psychology and Sociology. Similar types of jobs, okay? So people who've gone directly into the workplace, again, you've got everything from Quiet Brain Injury Ireland, the Peter McVerry Trust, Focus Ireland, recruitment. Somebody went on to work with the revenue commissioners. So again, think about what you're interested in, the kind of skills that you want to use as well. Okay, so lots of different options there. Postgraduate study, again, work and organisational psychology, economics and sociology, occupational therapy, psychological science, sports exercise and performance psychology. So again, a lot of postgraduate options depending on what you're interested in. Okay, so I won't say it's bad news, okay? But I suppose the reality is, if you're thinking about a career as a professional psychologist, now this research from the British Psychological Society, I think this is from 2011, so it's quite old, but I don't think it's changed too much. Basically, according to this, only about 20% of psychology students go on to become professional psychologists. So where do the other 80% go? Okay, and I think you'll see in a couple of minutes, some of you probably already know this, that to become a professional psychologist, it's a long route, it takes time, you've got to do more study, you've probably got to have a lot more experience. So, you know, it's not for everybody. But again, I always say, you know, somebody has to get a place on these programs, and why shouldn't it be you? But it will take quite a bit of time if that's the route you want to go down. If you're looking outside of professional psychology, a lot of employers will see it as a generic qualification, okay? So that's why I'm saying it's so important to think about the skills that you have. And you have so many amazing skills from studying psychology and sociology, but you need to be aware of what they are. You need to be able to articulate them. Okay, so just remember, it's not enough just to say, I have a degree in psychology or psychology and sociology. You need to think about the skills that you have. Some other research there from 2015, it found that psychology graduates can sometimes struggle to promote their skills and work experience in applications and interviews. We can help you with that in the career service, okay? That's what we're there for. So if you need a hand with anything at any stage, you're trying to kind of think about what skills do you have, how do you articulate them, either in a personal statement, your CV, or in an interview, we can help you with that. Okay, so what kind of skills do you have from your degree? Okay, have you thought about that? Okay, I think you have some fantastic skills. Okay, so obviously you've got your communication skills, your written skills, your verbal communication skills from essays, presentations, your FYP, research papers. Hopefully you should have amazing numerical skills from studying statistics. I'm assuming that most of you will have SPSS, Excel, research methods. You've also got skills in the areas of problem solving, critical thinking, research and analysis. And these skills are so important in such a huge amount of jobs. So really you need to think about, as well as the areas that you're interested in, or if you're not sure about the areas that you're interested in, even think about the skills that you have and what skills do you enjoy using. Okay, so research ethics as well, cultural awareness, interpersonal awareness. These are all skills that are really important in any job. So have a think about the skills that you have. So the American Psychological Society, there's a link there. And it just, again, it goes into a little bit more detail about the skills you've gained from studying psychology. Okay, so if you're enrolled in either of these two degree programs, your degree is accredited by the Psychological Society of Ireland. And I think personally, it's really important that you join as a student member. It's a fantastic help and resource for you. It's €18 for a year. Okay, have a look at them on their LinkedIn profile. You'd be joining the student affairs group. Okay, so it's a great opportunity for you really to become involved if you want in various events that are being held by the Psychological Society of Ireland. It's a great opportunity to network with more experienced psychologists. They have a mentorship program. I was just looking at it. It's fantastic. The closing date is gone for this year. But again, that might be something to think about maybe when you've graduated. You might be doing a postgrad. It's very much for early career psychologists, and they would be mentored by more experienced psychologists. So it's a great way to enhance and develop your career by being mentored, basically. You also get subscription to the Irish Psychologist magazine, and you get attendance reduced or free attendance to PSI events as well. They have some fantastic online events. There was one last year, excuse me, and I think it was 3 assistant psychologists were talking about how they got their positions, the kind of work experience that helped them to get their positions and their career paths. Okay, so definitely, if you can, join the PSI as a student member. Okay, I don't think you'll regret it. Okay, so talking about assistant psychologists, okay, that's kind of the familiar term that everybody uses, when they've graduated and they're hoping to go on and maybe do a clinical doctorate or an educational psychology doctorate down the line. Really, you need to try and get work experience, paid work experience as an assistant psychologist. And research has shown, again, this is quite old, that if you are looking at a professional psychology doctorate in a few years' time, that 71% of entrants to clinical psychology programs in Ireland have previously worked as an assistant psychologist. So really, if you're looking, at kind of applying for the clinical doctorate or another professional psychology doctorate down the line, you are looking at trying to get a job as an assistant psychologist, or as they're now known as, psychology assistants. There's been a change over the last year. So it's the same position basically, but it's basically just a new title. So you might see, if you're looking for jobs, assistant psychology or psychology assistant. Okay, it's the same job, just a different title. Okay, but yeah, it is kind of the gold standard if you're looking at doing a professional doctorate down the line. So I wanted to show you this. I had a look this week or last week for psychology assistant psychologist jobs. And as you can see, if you look at this job description with Enable Ireland, they're looking for a lot of things, okay? It's with the Children's Disability Network something service, okay? But with Enable Ireland, they're looking for a psychology assistant. And you can see they've got essential criteria, they've got desirable criteria. So the minimum really is a 2-1 degree, okay? And then you need to have specific knowledge, specific experience, a valid driving license, and then you've got the desirable criteria. So you can see from even looking at this job description, even after you've graduated, before you can get a job really as an assistant psychologist or psychology assistant, you need to have built up quite a lot of work experience. Okay. So again, you've got the essential criteria and then you've got the desirable criteria. That's the one I'd really be looking at there. Okay, because that's kind of the icing on the cake. So just remember, if that's something that you're looking for down the line, trying to get as much experience as you can before you apply for these roles is really important. Okay, so I said I'd give a brief overview of some of the professional psychology training programs as well and what they're looking for. So clinical psychology, that's always a really popular career area. Well, it is for first years. I think by the time people get to their final year and they've done a bit of research, the numbers tend to drop off who are interested because again, it's quite a long road to become a clinical psychologist. So in UL, for example, It's 3 years full time. There's approximately 12 places. You need to have your honours degree, and that one point at the bottom, practical and or research experience relevant to clinical psychology, is also required. It's just one line, but I think it means you need to have a fair bit of paid experience. Ideally, a job as an assistant psychologist before you apply for the doctorate in UL. So it is competitive. I did some work a couple of years ago with the third year clinical psychology students. They were just about to go out into the HSE or other areas. And I was asking them, you know, did you get into this doctorate the first time that you applied? And most of them said it took 2 or 3 times of applying before they were successful. Okay, so if this is an area that you're interested in and you apply the first time and you don't get in, that's not uncommon. It just means you probably need some more work experience. Okay, so it is competitive, but again, somebody has to get a place on these programs. But you probably will have to be working for a few years before you really can apply for this. You may need to have a master's degree as well. Okay, I know that the clinical psychology course director in the last few years, they've run, usually it's in the spring semester, so keep an eye on the website. Sometimes they have a webinar for interested applicants, and they'll go into detail about what they're looking for. But again, it's, have a look at the link. But you will need some more experience. I said I'd just throw this one in, clinical psychology in the UK. And I'm not sure if any of you will be thinking about going to the UK, but their website is fantastic. It's the Clearinghouse. And even some of the statistics there, you can see that they had 5,603 applicants, 1,100 places, and a 21% success rate. Okay, they have a lot more centres. The reason I really put this in there, though, was if you have a look at that link there for relevant experience entry requirements, it gives some really, really good tips on where to get experience, even if you're not planning to go to the UK. But it's just a good link to be aware of. Okay, and this is I like all this kind of stuff. So the BPS, the British Psychological Society, they produce a handbook every year. It's called the Alternative Handbook, and it's a trainee's guide to postgraduate clinical psychology courses in the UK. It's an interactive one this year through Power BI, so you can literally skip to the areas that you're interested in. But what I found interesting about this, and I think it's fairly applicable to Ireland as well, they ask the current group of, trainees, what was the application process like, how much experience they had, what was the average age. So again, you can see that the average, before that, a large number of them had applied at least once before being accepted. So that is the norm, I think. Okay. The average age of applicants was between 25 and 29. So it's, I'd say it's very unusual that somebody at the age of 21, 22 would be going into a clinical doctorate anywhere. Okay, so they were a little bit older. Most of them had master's degrees. Most of them had at least 2 years plus experience. All of them had been employed as either assistant psychologists, research assistants, healthcare assistants before applying. It goes into detail on the interview experience. I think this applies to Ireland as well. You will need to have a driving license, okay, because your placement could be, it could be far from where you're living. Okay, and again, you'd have to do selection tests and interviews, and that's the same as Ireland. But that just gives you an idea of, you're a little bit older, you've done postgraduate study, you've got at least 2 years of experience in various areas. Okay, moving on quickly. So 3 years ago now, if anybody's interested in working as a psychologist in the Irish Prison Service, Dr. Emma Regan, she's the head of the psychological services in the Irish Prison Service. She did a session for us on working or careers as a psychologist in the Irish Prison Service. So there's a link there. It's a YouTube video. It's really interesting. So if you're interested in that area, have a look at that video. As I said earlier, I'll upload a PDF copy of the slides into the chat box after this, so you'll have you'll be able to access that video. It's a really interesting video. Last May, the counselling service in UL, Lucy Smith, the head of counselling, Aisling O'Loughlin and April Craven, the three of them did another session for us on working in clinical psychology, counselling psychology, and counselling/psychotherapy. So there's another webinar there that's available to you if you're interested in their experiences, and they give some good tips and advice as well on working in these areas. I know that counselling psychotherapy is another very popular area, and I haven't gone into detail about that in this session, but that link is very useful. And I'm giving you a link at the end of the talk as well on more information on that. This one's really interesting. There's another link to a webinar here. This was recorded last year, November. So it was about careers in educational psychology. We had 2 educational psychologists from the National Educational Psychological Service talking about their own career paths. What do educational psychologists do? Where to get work experience? Who you work with? So there's a link to that video there. It was fascinating. Katrina and Grania, the same 2 speakers, they'll also be doing another webinar on Tuesday, the 5th of November. So a couple of weeks' time at 11 a.m. Once we have that set up, I'll send the link to Paul and Christine, and they can send it on to you, because that's always a really, really interesting talk if you'd be interested in working with school children in an educational environment. Okay. So in Ireland, there are currently 3 courses. Again, I think if you have a look, you need to have gotten your psychology degree already, and you need to have, it says here from AREI, an equivalent of 2 years relevant full-time experience of working in the field of education, psychology, or healthcare settings with children. Okay, so it's quite competitive. You need to have your degree, possibly a master's, and then at least 2 years experience. What's interesting about this is, up until very, very recently, this was a self-funded doctorate, okay? So the government has just started funding the doctorate in educational psychology. And so some places are funded through the HSE, and some places, I think, are funded through NEPS, which is really good news, because up until recently, the only doctorate that was funded was the clinical psychology doctorate, but now educational psychology is also funded as well, or some places are funded. I'm not sure about all of them. But anyway, if you get a chance to come to this webinar in a couple of weeks, I would definitely advise it. Otherwise, you can have a look at the webinar there. So I mentioned LinkedIn. I think most people look at LinkedIn as kind of looking for jobs, or they're not really quite sure what it can do. It can be so useful as a research tool, okay? So I'm going to show you how you can use LinkedIn to help you find out where previous graduates from your course are working or where they were studying. So if you have a LinkedIn profile, if you go to the search box at the top and you put in University of Limerick, you come onto the home page, you'll see a tab there called Alumni. If you click on the Alumni tab, you'll see, I think I just had a look at this morning, there are over 88,000 UL alumni who have LinkedIn profiles, and quite a few of them have graduated from psychology degrees or master's degrees in psychology. When you go into that alumni tab, there's a search box there. So what I did during the week was I put assistant psychologist into the tab, and the 2 years that I put in were 2020 to 2024. You can go back as far as you like, and I found that there were 414 UL graduates who are either working or have worked as assistant psychologist. And it literally, you can check all of their profiles. LinkedIn, you know, the whole point of LinkedIn is about networking. Okay, so you can see graduates from UL who are working as assistant psychologists. Some of them now may be educational psychologists, clinical psychologists, it depends, but you'll be able to see where they've worked right from when they graduated from UL. Did they go on and do a postgrad? What kind of work experience did they get before they went on to get an assistant psychologist position? For those who graduated a few years ago, do you know, after their assistant psychologist position, what did they do? Where did they go next? So LinkedIn is a really useful tool for doing your research on career paths from former graduates of UL who are working in areas that you might be interested in. Okay, so this is what I found when I had a look at the alumni tab. Where were they working, or where have they worked? Okay, so the HSE, the counselling service, mental health services, the prison service, the Brothers of Charity, Parents Plus, Acquired Brain Injury Ireland. Not all of these jobs, they may not necessarily have been working as assistant psychologists in all of these roles. Some of them would have, okay? But again, you'll be able to see where they started working before maybe they got the assistant psychologist position, okay? And what I gleaned from looking at this was that most assistant psychologists, I'd say most, if not all, have master's degrees and experience as healthcare assistants, rehabilitation assistants, special needs assistants, mental health, disability support, acquired brain injury support, research assistant, youth mental health, and social care workers. Okay, so the reason I put that in there is that, you know, the first job that you get after you graduate, just go to this slide first, actually. The first job that you get after you graduate, if you're interested in these areas, it may not say the word psychologist or psychology in the job title. It may say social care worker. It may say education project worker. It may say autism outreach support worker. Okay, so make sure that you're looking for jobs where you're going to get relevant experience. ActiveLink is a very, very good website, indeed.ie. I have an email alert set up on Indeed, and I get emails from them every day. So I put psychology in, or social care. So just to see the types of jobs that are coming in. Okay, but just to remember that you may not see the word psychologist or psychology in the title of the job that you're looking at, and that's fine. These are the types of areas where you're going to get your experience, paid experience, and build up your experience before, you know, before possibly applying for an assistant psychologist position. So the types of experience, okay? If you're interested in educational psychology, for example, it may be SNA work. Again, the reality for some of you is that you probably have to do a master's degree in psychology. That's just one example there. I know you've got the MSc in Psychological Science in UL. Another one that's very popular is the Masters in Applied Psychology in UCC. They also have a work placement element there. So even at this stage, if you're not in final year, or even if you are and you've got time to do some voluntary work to start building up your experience, even if you go onto the UL Student Volunteer website, there are lots of opportunities there to work with children, after school clubs. Actually, the UL Student Volunteer, they're having a volunteer careers fair tomorrow in the atrium in the Foundation building. I think it's the President's Volunteer Award ceremony, but they're also going to have about 30 organisations there that will be offering volunteer positions. So it's always good, if you don't have a lot of work experience at the moment, or none, to try and get some voluntary experience before you start applying for paid jobs. Okay, so again, organisations like, even in Limerick, Adapt House, we're looking for relief refuge workers last week. Okay, so Adapt House in Limerick, you've got Women's Aid, you've got the Rape Crisis Centre, you've got disability groups. So again, there's lots of ways to get experience, and some of it may need to be voluntary before you can get the paid work. Okay, so I would definitely have a look at ActiveLink. They've got fantastic jobs there. They've got very detailed job descriptions, and it will give you an idea of what they're looking for. Okay, so we might move on to some paid work. I'm assuming that you're all familiar with the Youth Advocates Programmes organisation, okay? Unfortunately, the closing date for this semester is gone. They will be at the not-for-profit event on the 13th of November, but they tend to recruit twice a year. So they were at our Spring Careers Fair last January and they were recruiting UL students, and the money's not bad. It's €16 per hour. It's up to 15 hours a week. And it's about working with young people, teenagers around Limerick, Clare. They do need a full driving license, so that might be a bit of an issue. But again, they're going to be at the session on the 13th of November. So if you're interested in working with young people, they provide a great training program as well. Go and have a chat with them and find out when they'll be recruiting again. Okay, so that's paid part-time work up to 15 hours a week. I saw this the other day, the HSE GradLink program. It's a 12-month program for graduates working in the HSE. Now, the closing date is the 30th of October. You need to have already gotten your degree for this, okay? But it's a really interesting one because you don't usually tend to think of the HSE as having a graduate program, but it's a 12-month program. It's in different areas, so obviously things like energy engineering wouldn't be applicable to you, but you might be interested in working in the HSE in the area of communication, administration, HR. So again, keep your eye on, you know, the HSE website for job alerts for the GradLink program. This time next year, it might be something that's of interest to you. Okay, that's another one to look at. Here's another volunteer. So Lacala are looking for people in Limerick for their mentoring program. So if you're interested in applying to Lacala, it's working with young people. They provide a great training program. It's a great way to get experience. And as it says there, they're particularly seeking male mentors at the moment. So the closing date for that is the 1st of November. Again, anything that you can do to build up your experience is going to help you get paid work, which is going to help you get more paid work, which is going to help you down the line. Okay. Peter McVerry Trust, the graduate programme, it's a 12-month programme. They'll be with us on the 13th of November as well. It's very much about working with in the areas of addiction, homelessness. They work with families as well. They work with the under 18s. So they'll be there to give advice and information on their graduate programme. So come and have a chat with them on the 13th of November if you're around. We've got the DePaul graduate programme as well. It's another 12-month programme. It's open to final year students. I was talking to DePaul at the Careers Fair a couple of weeks ago. Now, their graduate programme, it's not based in Limerick. Some of them are, some of them aren't. This one, I think, is based in Dublin, Cork, maybe. They're very keen to promote their graduate programme. Okay, so psychology, sociology students, if you've got some work experience or voluntary experience, they would be really happy to see you. Again, they're saying a driving license desirable, but not mandatory. One thing that they said was CORU eligibility or working towards eligibility. Okay, so I know that your programs are accredited by the PSI, but not by CORU. But when I asked Helen will be the person who will be at the event in 2 weeks' time, she said again, it's not, you don't necessarily, you don't have to be on a CORU registered course, but you'd need to be willing to apply for CORU during the time with us, and they would help you with that. So that's another one to keep an eye on, and there's the link. Novas, who are based in Limerick, another fantastic organisation. They'll be at the employer event on the 13th of November. They were at the Careers Fair a couple of weeks ago. They were looking for relief locum shift workers. So that might be something to consider. And they also recruit volunteers as well. Okay. So quite a few opportunities, paid opportunities in Limerick and volunteer opportunities in Limerick as well. Focus Ireland, their graduate programme, another fantastic programme. They have projects all over Ireland. Okay, Dublin, Limerick, Cork. Again, you could be working with families, children, it depends. So have a look at their website too. So quite a few opportunities out there if you need to get experience in certain areas. Okay, moving on. Sometimes you might decide, okay, it's going to take ages for me if I want to go on and become a clinical psychologist. I don't have the time, I don't have the money to go on. You could have a look at something like the MSc in Speech and Language Therapy, so the Allied Healthcare Professionals. So it's a 2-year master's programme in UL. full-time, that means 24 months full-time. Any degree is acceptable, okay? They don't care if you're studying psychology or linguistics or an arts degree, it needs to be a 2 to honours. The tricky thing about this, though, is that you need to do the HPAT exam. Okay, there is no interview, there's no personal statement. It's basically just completing the HPAT exam. So I was having a look last week. So if you're interested in speech and language therapy, applications close on the 17th of January. You'll be doing your HPAT test in the middle of February, and there are 4 sections as well. Okay, so reasoning, interpersonal understanding, non-verbal reasoning, and there's a written component that's for UL applicants only. Okay, so you can have a look at the HPAT website there. I know that there are private colleges around the country. They're not affiliated with UL, but they're like a grind school basically, but they do HPAT preparation courses. But have a look at that, see what you think. So HPAT is the only way to get into speech and language therapy. Again, occupational therapy, another 2-year professional postgraduate program, same requirements as the speech and language therapy. And there's a couple of links there because I know sometimes students say, oh, I'm not even really sure what that is. So there's a couple of websites there that tell you all about occupational therapy. What does an occupational therapist do? Who do they work with? So it's a really interesting career. But again, it's one that a lot of people aren't really clear about what's involved. Okay, postgrad study. So as mentioned earlier, I think a lot of you will probably have to go on and do postgrad study depending on what you're interested in, okay? So a few websites here that will give you some more information. So you've got Grad Ireland. If you're on a grant currently, you may be entitled to a grant for your first postgraduate course as well. So have a look at the SUSI website. You've also got the Springboard website. They're government funded courses, okay, and they are specifically for skills shortages areas in Ireland, okay, so it's mainly IT conversion courses, finance, things like that. So, you know, if you liked business, if you like maths, if you want to convert into a new area, these are interesting to look at. Okay, and then if you're thinking about studying abroad, have a look at the Prospects website. One thing that I just wanted to say regarding postgrad study, we will be doing sessions in semester 2 on preparing a personal statement for postgraduate study. So I know that some of the masters that you'll be applying for will be quite competitive. They will require a personal statement. So if you'd like to make an appointment to see myself or one of my colleagues at any stage as well, you can make an appointment through My Career Path, or you can email me and we can review your personal statement. We can help you prepare for interviews as well. So personal statement is a big part of applying for postgrads in lots of courses, not all of them. I know that a lot of psychology students are interested in areas like HR recruitment as well. So even have a look at the Grad Ireland website. It will give you updated weekly, I think, information on graduate programs specialising in HR. You might see, or you might be interested in marketing or traveling. Okay, so Jameson, the whiskey, Jameson Whiskey, they have an interesting graduate program, and it's for graduates from any discipline. It's about, you know, brand management, event management across the world. Okay, they usually start recruiting around January, so keep an eye on them if you're interested in traveling, marketing, and you want to travel abroad. You may need to have a second language for some of these positions, but not all of them. Okay, public jobs. If you're interested in working in the public sector, you can register with publicjobs.ie for graduate jobs. And just one that I added there as well, UniJobs. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's a great way to get a foot in the door into public sector jobs. So a lot of departments in UL, for example, hire staff through UniJobs, and it's a good stepping stone. The HSE hire people in through UniJobs as well. So it's a good one to keep an eye on when you've graduated. If you're looking for a job for the summer, or if again you'd like to work in public sector roles. So Uni Jobs too is a good one to look at. This is one that I saw today, and it's not one that psychology students would usually think about, but EY Ireland, they're a big professional services organisation. They're recruiting for their people consulting program. Closing date is tomorrow, okay? So if you are interested in this, you want to get your skates on. There's a link to the Grad Island link to it. It gives an overview. I had a look at it and it was kind of tricky to figure out what it was about. But basically, it's kind of a HR role. It's working around the areas of leadership, research, design. They're looking for people with really good data analysis skills as well. So again, I'm thinking if this is an area that you're interested in, you really like research, data analysis, it might be worth having a look at EY, okay? So I've kind of moved away from the whole professional psychology training programs now. And, I was talking about skills-based recruitment earlier. Think about the skills that you have. If you like working with people, if you've got good research skills, data analysis skills, there are lots of opportunities out there, and this is just one of them. Okay, you might decide at the end of your degree that you just want to get the hell out of Ireland and travel for a year, take some time out. Sabis schools, they are always coming to UL. They're always holding webinars. They recruit graduates usually from any discipline. If you'd like to take a year out and go and teach in Dubai, I think for psychology it would be primary, kindergarten. But it's a great opportunity if you want to take some time out, make some money, get some experience, live abroad before figuring out what you want to do. Have a look at Sabis. There's another one that's run by the Irish government. It's the English Language Assistance Scheme. If you want to take a year out and teach English for a year, most of these schools in Austria, Germany, France, and Italy or Belgium, they might need you to have a working knowledge of the language. I think Spain, you don't need to have Spanish, okay? So the closing date last year was March, but this year it's probably going to be the same. But keep an eye on that if you'd like to take a year out and do some teaching. Primary teaching is another option. You can apply from any discipline to become a primary teacher. You'll have to do your 2-year postgraduate masters in education, but you have to do this TEG exam first of all, which is an oral Irish exam, and that's going to be early in semester 2. So you need to have quite a high level of Irish to do that, okay? So just to be aware that if you're thinking about primary teaching in Ireland, you need to do a TEG exam. You have to have a high level of Irish. And then you apply to Mary I or the other colleges to do the PME in primary teaching. Just some other links here as well. Working abroad, the Prospects website has links to 50 countries. EU careers, there's a massive shortage of Irish graduates working in the EU institutions. So the Irish government is always looking for Irish graduates who have a second language, ideally, to work in the EU institutions. There are lots of traineeships available, and the European Movement website has some really good links on working and living in the EU. They've got a book, it's called the Green Book, that you can download as well. If you're interested in working in Luxembourg, Strasbourg, where to find jobs, again, thinking about the skills that you have with your degree, that might be something that you could be interested in. So some useful websites. So again, the Psychological Society of Ireland, join as a student member. There's a link there, tips for aspiring clinical psychologists. The BPS website has a fabulous section on all types of careers in psychology. So if you're not 100% sure what you're interested in, have a look at the BPS website. The Irish Association for Counselling and Psychotherapy has information on accredited counselling and psychotherapy training courses. If you're interested in social work, for example, have a look at the Irish Association of Social Workers. You will need to do a master's in social work to get your professional qualification. And again, because HR, organisational psychology, is a popular choice for psychology students, you could have a look at the Grad Island website as well. Okay, I saw this last year. It's quite good actually. Again, I know I keep referring back to the UK, but some of their websites just seem to have a lot more information than we do have here in Ireland. The NHS has a website. It's Find Your Career. Okay, and it gives overviews of like over 100, is it 100? Oh yeah, a few hundred websites or a few hundred careers in health sectors. Okay, and it basically takes you about 5 to 10 minutes. It'll ask you 50 questions, and it's just a way to get you thinking again if you're not sure at the moment what kind of careers that you're interested in. You know, some suggestions based on your answers to the questions. Okay, so that's a useful one if you think you'd like to work in the area of health, allied healthcare, psychology, other related areas. It'll give you an idea of what kind of careers are out there that match your answers based on your interests. Okay, so to summarize, join the PSI. Depending on what you're interested in, try and get as much experience as you can, even if it's an hour or two a week, even if you have to take a year out after college to build upon your experience before applying for a job or a postgrad. Think about what skills you have, know what you're interested in. Again, you can come and have a chat with us. Do your research on those career areas. Practical things then, like make sure that your CV is up to date, know how to market yourself on your CV, be interview ready. Again, we can help you prepare for interviews, and you can contact us through My Career Path to make an appointment, or you can email me at patsy.ryan@ul.ie. I said I'd just mentioned this. It's a new platform that we have. It's called My Career Kit. And if you've got the time, we've just launched our Employability Award. And if you're at the very, very beginning of the career planning process, it will literally start at the very beginning, looking at your personality type, your strengths, your aptitudes. It moves on to what skills do you have? How can you articulate your skills? It will help you investigate careers. It will help you with CVs. It will help you with LinkedIn interview preparation. Again, we can do a lot of that with you, but you know, career planning takes a little bit of time, and it takes a lot of self-reflection. So this is something you can do in your own time. And My Career Kit. If you have a CV, obviously we'd be happy to look at your CV for you. But if you have a CV, you can get instant feedback on My Career Kit. So there's a QR code there. Once you scan that, it'll bring you straight into it. You'll get instant feedback on your CV. It also has CV templates. It'll tell you how to build your CV. We have another tool called Interview 360, where you can do virtual interviews. And again, it will give you feedback on everything from your eye contact to your body language, how to answer competency-based questions. So we have a lot of resources within the career service that you can do in your own time. Again, there are a lot of assessments there: strengths, temperament, personality, emotional intelligence, your values. They're all things that are really important when you're thinking about your life in general and your career. So you can do all of those completely free of charge on My Career Kit. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording and I'll be happy to take any questions.